Members' motion with no legislative effect. Mr. Man-kwong's motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. Mr. KWOK Wai-keung will move an amendment to the motion. The Council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendment. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Man-kwong to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Mr. KWOK Wai-keung to speak, but he may not move the amendment at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Member who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. Now call upon Mr. Man-kwong to speak and move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. That is, reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. I move this motion to scrutinize the current policy to revitalize the hawker culture in Hong Kong. Our hawker culture is a collective memories of ours and is a unique cultural resource. We have Lady Streets, which has become a very popular tourist spot among tourists. According to the Hong Kong Tourism Development Blueprint, tourists like to visit Tsim Sha Tsui, Temple Street, and Lady Streets the most. This shows that these hawkers' pitches are very popular. A few million travelers visit these hawker pitches. However, they are faced with unseen difficulties. Over the past 10 years, the number of fixed-pitch hawkers is declining. It went from some 20,000 in the 90s to about 6,000 these days. Because of environmental hygiene, public sanitation, the government has stringent regulation over hawker management. They set aside some $1.2 billion to manage hawkers in Hong Kong. I understand that back in the days, the government allowed hawkers to survive while regulating them with stringent rules in order to safeguard environmental hygiene. But these days, as we talk about tourism is everywhere, should we prioritize public hygiene only? Should we not see hawker culture as a characteristics of ours or develop it into one of our tourist hotspots? I've moved this motion, hopefully, to ask the government to review the hawker management policy so that we can help fixed-pitch hawkers to revitalize local economy and turn it into something that drives our economy and our tourism development. Now, on fixed-pitch hawkers, when I drafted this motion, I asked hawkers in the Lady Streets, Temple Streets. I heard some unique views. Now, the types of commodities that are allowed to be sold at fixed-pitch hawkers are clearly set out. That's why the types of commodities that can be sold are very limited. Hawkers can only sell a certain type of commodities. Although the government relaxed some of the restrictions allowing hawkers to sell prepackaged food, they have to choose one commodity to sell. This limits the innovation of hawkers, and they will not be able to catch up with the times. Over the short run, I think that we should put in place a mechanism to relax the type of commodities that can be sold. For example, allow hawkers to sell prepackaged food and dry goods at the same time. We should ask traditional hawkers to sell unique goods in Hong Kong and to create a Hong Kong souvenir streets so that tourists can have a taste of our local crafts. And there is also an aging population among hawkers. According to government statistics, the age of fixed-pitch hawker licensees is around 60 to 79. That amount to about 31,000. There are only 145 hawkers who are aged below 40. I think that we have to amend the outdated policy to allow hawkers to hire assistant. Currently, assistant cannot operate the pitches without the presence of hawkers because hawkers are now very aged. That's why many of their pitches are not in operation. Take the Singapore as an example. They have the Hawkers Succession Scheme, HSS. They allow experienced assistants to apply to become licensees, and they also offer training for these assistants so that they can become a hawker themselves. I think that we should amend our legislation and to create this hawker succession scheme here. Currently, in Temple Streets, there are many vacancies. According to trade association statistics, there used to be 280 licensed hawker pitches, but now there are only 180 that are in operation. The usage rate is about 60% only. The 70 pitches that have been allocated are now vacant. This is very worrisome because it shows that the current policy is not attractive enough for new entrants, and it's difficult for us to enhance the competitiveness of the hawkers with the current rules. So I think that the government should provide facilitation. They should first consolidate the pitches that are in operation and delineate spaces for them according to the commodities they sell. For example, in Temple Street, we have, say, handicraft zone, local delicacy zones. In the mainland, they have an area for performance and games at their night markets. So I think that we should allow performers to stage performance at a certain area in the hawker market, given that they have applied for pre-approval. This will attract families and tourists of all ages. At the hawker market, we should put in place special lightings. For example, the neon signs at Temple Street attracted a lot of tourists to take photos there. For Appendix Street, they also wanted there to be photo-taking spots at the two ends of their street to enhance the attractiveness. There are some streets that ask hawkers to close their stores and remove their commodities when they close at night. This actually undermines the potential of these markets. I think that the government should relax the restrictions. While we take into account the concerns of the nearby residents, we should extend the operating hours of these hawker markets. Take Thailand, Bangkok as an example. They have set aside a pedestrian zone at the hawker market. This attracted a lot of tourists because they can visit there at night, and this also boosted the business of nearby residents and stores. I think that we should stop asking the hawkers to demolish or rather remove their articles at night. By this, we can create a new landmark. I think also the government should introduce new innovations to attract new entrants to become hawkers. I'd like to share the Singapore ISP experience. That's the incubation stall program. They offer a mentorship scheme and offer subsidy to hawkers. Over the past 5 years, people who joined the market because of HDP aged around 35. That's significantly lower than the average age of hawkers in Singapore, which is 59. So it shows that the HDP actually attracted a lot of new entrants. So I think that we should offer, say, staggered rent or discounted rent for potential entrepreneurs to submit proposals, and then we can offer training to them so that they can have support from the government. If their business does not do well, then perhaps we can ask them to return the concessions and ask them to exit the market, and we can have the space reallocated to newcomers. When these programs are effective, as a next step, without affecting existing hawkers, we can reform our tenancy program, allowing all people to apply for a license. And at the appropriate time, we can put in place an exit mechanism to allow aged hawkers to overturn their license voluntarily. By having or revitalizing our hawker culture, we can implement this idea of tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. I think that government should change the mindset. Instead of focusing on just environmental hygiene, we should turn the hawker culture into new tourist attraction. I hope that member will support my motion. I hope that government will reform the hawker management policy and invigorate the local economy. Thank you, President.
I now propose the question to you that Honourable Man-kwong's motion be passed. Honourable KWOK Wai-keung. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I thank Mr. Man-kwong for moving the original motion. This gives us a chance to speak for this group of underprivileged people. When we think about hawkers, we think about hygiene problems. They have often been associated with unhygienic conditions. However, hawkers carry on the baton of the Lion Rock spirit. If you do a search, then you will realize that hawker spirits are flexible, perseverant, self-reliant, and hardworking. There is a recent movie about a hawker selling dumpling. It's a very moving story. It carries Hong Kong people's unique characteristics. The current hawker management is to suppress whenever there is a complaint. Even if there is no street obstruction, then you will be chased away. And if you don't have a license, you will be closed down. It doesn't matter how well you are in cooking the food. From Monday to Sunday, there are visitors, but bazaars are only allowed over the weekend. That is because the government doesn't want them to affect the business of proper shops. So, what is the policy of the government? Is it going to be inclusive or exclusive when it comes to hawker management? There is no guidance in government policy. We want to rebuild hawkers' spirit. I have made 3 suggestions in my amendment. First, there should be flexible short-term license put in place. The license period should be 1 to 3 years so that people who want to start the trade can do it on a pilot basis. If they perform well, then the license can be renewed. Secondly, the government should step up publicity. You can create a hawker's map available online. There can be some accreditation of service quality or certification of their brands. When it comes to commodity, we can add home-cooked cuisines, handicraft, intangible products. Say, for example, some rice cakes from Hakka people and some ethnic dumplings. Perhaps we can draw reference from Singapore. The government will provide concessionary rent to keep traditional street food alive. Perhaps at the airport, at boundary control points, there can be booths set up selling these street food. You can also ask authorities to give them the accreditation they need. When it comes to bazaars, perhaps the rental can be pegged with the turnover volume. There can be apprenticeship put in place so that Startups will have a mentor to teach them. Times might have changed, but hawker business is not outdated. It represents perseverance and industry. Visitors' consumption and travel pattern have changed. We need to empower hawkers. We need to focus on community economy instead of focusing on GDP. Everyone work to support themselves and their family. Please give them a chance. I ask members to support my amendment and the original motion.
Secretary for Environment and Ecology. Deputy President, I thank Mr. Scott LEUNG for moving the motion and Mr. KWOK Wai-keung for moving the amendment. It gives us a chance to discuss the hawker policy of the government as logical. Hawker policy has always been a complicated issue. Society has different opinions on and aspirations for hawkers and on-street hawking activities. There are views that hawking activities have local characteristics and can offer employment. There are also concerns that hawking activities on the streets would obstruct pavements, impact environmental hygiene, food safety, and give rise to fire risk. As at the end of April this year, there are some 5,000 licensed hawkers, with 4,800 fixed-pitch license holders and 200 itinerant license holders. They peddle a wide range of merchandise and crafts across the territory. Over the past 3 years, the FEHD has received 2,650 complaints in relation to licensed hawkers, mainly in relation to street obstruction, environmental and hygiene nuisances, and other licensing issues. There are also 9,300 complaints about illegal hawking. We have to balance different aspirations so that licensed hawkers can run their business according to market demand without causing excessive nuisances to local residents and negative impacts on the environmental hygiene, food safety, and public security. The FEHD maintain environmental hygiene and ensure food safety through a licensing system to regulate hawking activities. Also, various measures have been rolled out from time to time to help licensed hawkers succession and transfer of the licenses. Timely reviews has been conducted. For example, in 2019 and 2022, the FEHD has put up vacant fixed hawker pitches for reallocation so that itinerant hawkers can move into fixed pitches. Newcomers have joined the industry as well. 500 new licenses were issued that year. Besides, in 2022 and 2023, in response to the trade's views, the FEHD has relaxed the licensing conditions for certain fixed-pitch hawkers, so that they are allowed to sell over 30 types of non-food-related dry goods, including clothing, household items, pet goods, and small toys, as well as prepackaged goods and beverages. Hawkers are faced with challenges brought about by the changes in socio-economic pattern and consumption habit. Since the heyday of Hong Kong's hawking industry, more and more retail points and shopping methods have emerged, for example, chain stores, e-commerce platforms, and cross-boundary consumption. Consumers' taste has also changed, from focusing on price and durability to trendiness and eco-friendliness. Also, there are views that Hong Kong can make reference to the experience in the mainland and other places to integrate the operation model of hawkers with tourism. On that, we have consulted the CSTB. According to the CSTB, tourist hotspots are not just products of the government's planning and labor. Tourists are attracted to places favored by the locals, as they are usually steeped in local characteristics. In fact, there are already popular districts well known for their hawker culture. According to the development blueprints for Hong Kong's tourism industry 2.0, published by the CSTB in December last year, Temple Street and Lady Street were ranked second among the top 10 attractions for overnight visitors between January and June 2024. Hawker bazaars like Appendix streets are also recommended as characteristic tourist hotspots. It shows that with a sustainable business model, suitable market positioning, and effective marketing, hawking activities can tie in with the development of our tourism industry. Based on the above consideration, in relation to the well-loved Dai Pai Dong street food stalls, the FEHD will exercise discretion in considering succession and transfer of licenses on a case-by-case basis. Enhancement works have been carried out in cooked food markets to offer characteristic dining experience. It is a view that, like other retail businesses and economic activities, hawkers need to find a sustainable business model and market positioning. On that, we keep an open mind on whether to increase the types of merchandise to be sold by hawkers, as long as there is no negative impact on food safety and environmental hygiene. We will be open to providing more support to hawkers. I will listen carefully to members' views today and give a consolidated response afterwards. Thank you.
Mr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Hawkers are there because there is a need. According to the website of the FEHD, in the past 100 years, selling food and items on the street is our culture. The movie mentioned by Mr. Kwok is something that I am talking about. In 2017, the policy address talks about making use of a traditional fabric and garment manufacturing base in Sham Shui Po to help the development of our garment industry. And that was the DX Design Center. Some fixed pitch hawking stores are moved to the established center. A number of people said that Sham Shui Po can be further developed into industrial tourism. I have some suggestions. We need a strategy to involve hawkers, using Tung Chau Street as an example. In the market there are hawker stores there. I think that we need to enhance the hardware. Assistance should be given to store owners. The vacant space should be well used. We need to make use of the DX Design Center to revitalize the area. We can also have bazaars there. Say, for example, the various areas selling leather belts, buttons. They could be very well used. Well, there was a proposal to revitalize Temple Street. I think we need to draw reference from Temple Street. There can be weekend designated areas for prospective store operators to use the area. There should be publicity put in place as well. We should have smart hawker stores. In Sham Shui Po, there are elderly people selling things on the street. There are also carts, hawking carts. I think they should be included in the plan. In Harbin, there is a famous location with licensed hawkers as well as small stores run by students, they get provisional licenses. We can also have smart hawking carts. Well, when the activity is legalized, then there is healthy competition. It's good for the trade. We need to change the mode of operation as well as the licensing procedure. Well, the person who makes dumplings in the movie, she has to change her recipe to constantly improve. We need to adopt a novelty line of thinking. We need to release the potential of hawkers so that there will be more tourism hotspots for Hong Kong. Ms. Chen Ho-yen. The policy of hawker management is regulation. This stifles competition. The result is that the number of hawkers has dropped from the peak 20,000 to about 5,100. Hawkers is our collective memory. It is also a means for people to earn a living. In recent years, the government has reviewed the policy of hawkers and community economy. We need to rethink the whole situation. When it comes to hawkers, the economic value, is it just about nostalgia? Well, there are about 200,000 people visiting the location. About 70% of them are local people. They visit the bazaars, and so you need to start from there. You need to make sure that the needs of local people are met. You should not neglect the power of local tourism. It is difficult to maintain footfall if you rely on just an old theme. You need to make the activity diversified. People may be spending on the mainland, but I think that is down to the experience and not about how cheap things are. Consumers want to enjoy good quality service and products of a good value. Bazaars is another key point. Say in the West Kowloon Cultural District, there are many different kinds of stores. People from different generations are interested. There is a special activity. It was very well received. So you need to be innovative to attract customers. But the current hawker management policy is stifling. Let me give you an example. There was an event on bazaar at the West Kowloon Cultural District. But there was an incident in which a hawker had the equipment confiscated. The store was very successful in that event. This shows that the licensing regime is calcified. The policy is not matched with the local economy. We can only see these successful cases in West Kowloon. Why? We need to complete the review of the policy, including positioning of hawkers as well as their management. The government keeps talking about revitalizing our economy. Food truck is a failure case in point. In the end, the plan was a complete failure. We need to review the management regime. There should be a tiered licensing regime. Well, there may be different categories. The application procedure should be streamlined. There should be cooperation with community groups. Hawkers are flexible. It has a very low threshold. It's what we need when the economy is in the doldrums. Instead of phasing them out, make use of the resources to revitalize hawking activities. The government should put work into what they say. We need to revitalize our street economy. Thank you.
Mr. Tang Yuhen, thank you, the President. Hawker culture is a part of our lives. It's brought about many job opportunities, shopping opportunities for the people. Say, for example, we have Temple Street, Cobbler Streets in Central. These are spots that are very popular among tourists. But because of policy limitations and the change of consumption patterns coupled with a lack of innovation, traditional hawker culture is phasing out. According to the FEHC statistics, in 2023, there are only about 5,000 licensed hawkers here and 200 itinerant hawkers. Compared to about 7 million people here, the ratio is rather low. We have not issued any new hawker licenses in years. It's difficult for the industry to make adjustment in accordance with the latest development of the market. Although in recent years, the government issued new licenses, but we have an aging problem with the hawkers, and hawkers culture is of value culturally. And in terms of tourism development, we have to reform the hawker management policy. We should not just relax or tighten the restrictions. We have to formulate a more detailed and policy that are more up to date. We have to formulate a hawker management policy with Hong Kong characteristics. I think that we should make reference to, say, Bangkok, Singaporeans' practice through relaxing policies, promoting tourism, improving regulation, and facilitating the hawkers. We can promote the healthy development of this industry. We have to strike a balance between a city order and environmental hygiene. First, we have to consider issuing new licenses to hawkers. We should open up applications for license application, and we should allow for transfer of licenses. We can open up the license application for members of the public and ask them to renew their license once every few years. This will allow us to step up a regulation and to draw new blood. I think that we can perhaps issue license of different nature or different types according to the characteristics of the district. Third, we should integrate hawker culture and tourism so that the hawker culture will become one of our highlights. Take Singapore, successful example as reference. They have their hawker culture become one of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Their hawker stalls have become one of their brands. This enhances their international reputation and image. They, at designated locations, have set up outdoor hawker stalls. I think that we should streamline the application procedures, allow hawkers to sell all sorts of commodities, such as handicraft, souvenirs, and local delicacies. Also, I think that we should improve a hawker management policy and encourage the hawkers to adopt technology. We have to have a point system to regulate the hawkers and to minimize the impact of them on the community, we should set up subsidy scheme. And to promote the development of smart hawkers, we should encourage them to install GPS devices and electronic payment devices. Through incubation program, capital support, we will be able to attract new blood to the industry. I so submit. Mr. Stanley Lee. Thank you, Madam Deputy. On the motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy, I thank Mr. Man-kwong for moving this motion. We focus on regulation these days. Since 1972, we have not issued any new licenses. It dropped from 20,000 to about only 5,000 these days. It shows that the industry is facing natural attrition. In Yamate Temple Street, Avenue Street, and Shimshui-po, they have become one of our landmarks. These are places where there are a lot of hawkers. We should recognize the cultural value of these places. I think that we should adopt a development-led approach. We can make reference to the Singapore, London, mainland, and Bangkok, and to develop a thematic hawker economic circles. Specifically, we can use Avenue Street and Shimshui-po as a pilot point by introducing, say, neon lights and 3D murals to create an immersive spots. We should also formulate in-depth itineraries and to integrate hawker culture with tourism. On the other hand, I think that the government should improve the environmental hygiene there and enhance the cleanliness of public toilets to offer a comfortable experience for tourists. Also, we can step up promotion via online platforms. We should promote in-depth tourism. This is how we can vitalize hawker culture and hawker economies. In the amendment moved by Mr. KWOK Wai-keung, it's about launching pilot bazaars. I tend to abstain from supporting the amendment. I think that if we relax the restrictions too much, then there will be an imbalance created. Mr. KWOK Wai-keung moved this motion mostly to support measures promoting fixed pitch hawkers. But actually, they pose a lot of different problems, such as street obstruction and safety hazards. The number of itinerant hawkers have dropped from 4,400 to 804. But there are still a lot of illegal vendors, and they actually cause nuisance to local residents. The constituency that I belong to, Changkwon-o, have a lot of people complaints about street vending that caused hygienic problem. If we relax the areas where hawkers can place their pitch, then at places with a lot of pedestrian flow, such as Tsim Sha Tsui and Yau Chin Mon, Causeway Bay, it may cause blockage to emergency access. Now, from the perspective of market fairness, stores have to pay high rent and they have to pay a fee to maintain their licenses. If we relax the areas where hawkers can sell their commodities, then this may result in unfair competition. In Saigon, we have a lot of vacant stores. If we further relax the restrictions for hawkers, I am worried that there will be many vacant stores in Hong Kong. Hawker management policy is about cultural succession, our values, and survival of the industry. I think that we should strike a balance among the interests of all parties. I support the original motion, but as I mentioned, I will not be supporting the amendment. I will continue to listen to the views of the local districts. Hopefully, the government will strike a balance between protecting the interest of the local districts and promotion of tourism. I so submit. Mr. Jimmy. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Chung Festival will happen in Saturday, and that will kickstart our first ICH month. Chung Festival is the first item that is listed on the ICH list of our country. In 2020, Singapore hawker culture will become an item on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The UNESCO is of the view that a hawker culture is something that can be succeeded. The Singaporean minister said that hawker culture is not just a part of their people's life. It actually reflects people's recognition to a diverse culture in the community. Hawkers are a part of the community and is a kind of local characteristics. Many people, when they travel, they will go to local bazaars to experience local lifestyle. Now, coming back to Hong Kong, since the 1970s, we have stopped issuing itinerant hawker licenses. We should not just blame the government. We used to have hawkers everywhere. Many people and businesses complained about hawkers obstructing the street. That's why the hawker control team took enforcement action against these hawkers. Our environmental hygiene was maintained and people's lives were saved. But I think that we can coexist with hawkers. We have to just work on the management. We have to combat against obstruction of streets by hawkers. We have seen results in this area, but what we need is management. Singapore has a good planning. That's why their hawker culture flourished. According to reports, the Singaporean administration have this hawkers development program. They offer designated spots for young people to establish stalls. They also offer training and subsidy to these potential hawkers. They offer culinary classes for them even. As hawker culture can vitalize local economies and attract tourists, we have to draw up a blueprint. The business sector, the people, and the government should work together. We should formulate appropriate policies. First, in terms of timing, we have to keep abreast of the time. Tourists who go for in-depth tourism like to go into local districts. I think that we should encourage local hawkers to sell special delicacies. After mega events, we can organize the night markets to revitalize night economies. Second, location. The location of these bazaars should not be too close to residences, but that should not be too far away either. We have a number of harborfront promenades. We can consider having bazaars there. Third, succession. We can learn from the overseas or the mainland's experience. We visited Jiangsu and we saw a lot of successful bazaars. We should see hawking as a form of entrepreneurship. Many young people don't like to work in an office. They like to become their own boss, and they may prefer selling commodities as a hawker. Hawkers contributed to our economy greatly in the old days. These days, hawkers work not just to earn a living, but actually promote our tourism. I so speak in support of the motion and the amendments.
Mr. Andrew Lam. Deputy President, I thank Mr. Scott Leung for moving the original motion and Mr. LEUNG KWOK Wai-keung for the amendment. On-street hawking has been a means to make a living for family. It is also a collective memory. Still, with the economic development, opinions changed towards this cultural asset. Many hawkers have transform their businesses into famous stores selling iconic culinary to tourists. Small shops located at street corners have become check-in spots for tourists. However, when there are a lot of on-street stores, it will cause a lot of issues and regulation is needed. On the other hand, moving itinerant hawkers into public markets would kill these businesses. It will only make those stores in wet markets become warehouses. Now, using hawking activities to offer job opportunities is another matter. Now, it is much easier to start a business online, but for newcomers, they can try their luck on the street. There are lots of dedicated markets selling certain types of goods, for example, Goldfish Market and Apple Street. Now, we don't have to eliminate hawkers amidst urban development. Rather, we need to find a new positioning for hawkers. We are a melting pot of Eastern and Western culture, and we are an advanced city, but we can still accommodate hawkers. We need to make our city dynamic but orderly. Now, functional hawkers which provide an essential function, social function, has already lost their place. We must strike a balance between order and regulation and allowing them to continue to operate to a certain extent. Now, for the other type of hawkers, they have rich links with the local history. The mere existence is an intangible cultural asset for the neighborhood. Now, we need to help them survive. For hawkers, which are cultural assets, we need to help them. For example, besides the licensed seafood store in Lao Fao Shan in LEUNG, there are also a lot of boat people selling seafood along the shore. It is really a rare sight in this concrete jungle that is Hong Kong. Now, we can demarcate a dedicated area on the sea to allow these boat people to sell seafood. We can also develop fishermen itinerary to showcase the history of fishing to tourists. Now, we can also establish rural bazaar in rural areas for villagers and farmers to sell their homemade delicacies. There can also be cultural bazaars for artisans to sell their crafts. The government's role is to help enhance the standard and enhance the packaging of the products. This will help inject new life into the dyeing trade and make them become the gem in rural tourism. We should attract more young people to encourage the hawking culture in a new way. The streets can become a showcase for young people's talents. For example, promenade, public parks and other public areas can be converted into a composite commercial areas at specific times, so that on-street culture can get a new lease of life in the city. We have to separate hawking activities into cultural hawking activities, functional activities, and historical activities. Then we can transform this fauna of the streets into a cultural asset. And we have to keep our local characteristics. Otherwise, we will become a bland modern city left only with cash. Mr. Kenneth LEUNG, Deputy President, to enhance the cityscape and promote economic growth, the government has been implementing many measures to promote economic activities. For example, the day and night vibes in the 18 districts and the weekend bazaars. Now, hawking activities are a key to these activities. I thank the move of the motion for moving this motion. Now, earlier on the little red note, I saw a popular post titled, "Shops we don't want them to close in Hong Kong." Most of them are hawker stalls or Dai Pai Dongs. According to JCI survey, and also the survey on tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong, compared with buying luxurious products, tourists are more attracted to our street food and cultural activities. Inevitably, under the new traveling pattern, tourists enjoy fishbowl on the streets more. Now, for itinerant hawkers selling roasted chestnuts and other traditional products, there are fewer and fewer of them in Hong Kong. Now, we shouldn't see them just as nuisances. The government should conduct a study on this. There was an earlier question from a member on how many itinerant licenses are there. There are only 271. The trade is dying. There is a huge gap in the government's hawker policy. On one hand, they are providing essential services. On the other hand, the government is driving them away. Sure, it does make our streets cleaner, but it has taken the human touch from our streets. Now, the motion mentioned that we need to forge a hawker to forge thematic hawker economic circles using street blocks as the core. I fully agree with that. We should also bring in gourmet trucks and street performances to make the scene vibrant. Now, in the mainland and other places, there are tailgate, bazaars, and also other street performances going on in bazaars. In Japan and America, gourmet trucks are integrated with local events. Now, back then when we had the gourmet truck scheme, there were a lot of restrictions and the entry threshold was too high. It failed in the end. The government needs to innovate the mindset. We need to revive gourmet truck and bring them back. We can use the promenade as trial sports. Also, the Western Kowloon Cultural District. Now, there was a movie which is very famous, Dumpling Queen. The protagonist of the movie sold dumplings as the Wan Chai Pier back in the 1980s, and it grew into a massive business. Now, many young people nowadays are homebodies. While we are criticizing the Gen Zers, we need to give them sufficient room to shine. Now, back in the 20th century, despite the low academic attainment, many people forged a way ahead by selling food on the street. However, because of the new regulations, this way out has been eliminated. It is my hope that street economies can provide a way out for our young people. Thank you. Professor Man-kwong, Deputy President, there are licensed and unlicensed hawkers. Now, this figure I'm quoting is for licensed hawkers. As of September 2024, there were some 4,900 fixed-pitch hawkers and some 200 licensed itinerant hawkers. Compared with a decade ago, the number has dropped by 20 and 40% respectively. Some 70% of the licensees are aged 60 or above. Without issuance of new licenses, in the next 10 years, hawkers will disappear in Hong Kong. Now, for unlicensed hawkers, especially those selling leftover food, we need to crack down on these activities. I understand that, but for those selling clothing, roasted chestnuts and roasted sweet potatoes, and also those selling miscellaneous items, they are popular because they are cheap, and also roasted chestnuts have been a famous local delicacy. Now, I thank and support Mr. Man-kwong's original motion. I have 3 suggestions. First, the government should tap the preference of local people and tourists and establish hawker bazaar in all 18 districts. We should also give support to existing fixed-pitch stalls. Now, the most famous areas include Temple Street and Ladies Market. But what else? Are there any other places where they are famous for hawking? Well, actually, the business is not very lucrative. There are only some 30 cooked food stores in Temple Street, and 1/3 of the stores on Lady Street have closed. Now, there are unreasonable regulations like dismantling of stores overnight and other restrictions. So I have 2 suggestions here. Now, we should make reference to the Happy Hong Kong and Night Vibe campaigns. Now, with a balanced struck, we should allow regular and diversified bazaars to be established in various districts. This will help hawkers to move their businesses into the market. The products they sell can be those needed by local residents. Even without an itinerant hawking license, these hawkers should be allowed to do business in these bazaars. We should give them some space. Second, many people are fond of the memories brought to them by old streets like Lady Street. The travelers are the same. They like these streets a lot because the products they sell are cheap and of quality. Now, there are also flower markets near the Ladies Market. So on the premises of public safety, we should review whether we should keep the requirements for stores to be dismantled overnight anymore. Every store cost $100,000 to set up in order to meet the FEHD standards. The threshold to become a hawker in Hong Kong is actually quite high. So to reduce the burden on hawkers, can we launch a pilot scheme to waive the fees for license? If no irregularities are found, can we waive the license fees? Otherwise, hawkers in ladies' markets, even in Pedder Street in Central, will die out. Now, the government should take a comprehensive consideration on enhancing the hawker policy to ensure that the operation of hawkers will not be incompatible with the surrounding businesses. Many stores and even shopping malls close at 9 p.m. Now, can we keep things going by establishing nighttime bazaars? Thank you.
Mr. Vincent Chang. Thank you. I speak in support of the original motion, that is, on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. Street selling is a culture in Hong Kong. A lot of people find them in a lot of streets. Ladies Market, LEUNG Street. There are over 2,000 stores. Their activities are closely related to people's lives. There are fixed pitches. They've been run quite well. They work well with the FEHD. They fully understand the policy and arrangements. When it comes to removing barriers, I'll leave it in the hands of the administration. I want to talk about Temple Street and LEUNG Street. I went to Temple Street to distribute dumplings. I thank the government for revitalizing the Temple Street by changing the approach. People asked for a food bazaar because it has disappeared for some time. There are other similar bazaars in the past, but only Temple Street survived. There is diversification. There are stores selling Middle Eastern food. There are also a lot of visitors. When I went there, I saw Westerners. So the pilot scheme in Temple Street is kind of successful. Well, the cooked food stores are well run, but at the back, the stores are not as well run. They sell food goods of a wide range. They sell cookies, they sell souvenirs, targeting visitors. But because of licensing restrictions, they are not allowed to sell that many. If they're asked to just switch the entire stock, it's too costly for them. Perhaps they should be allowed to sell individual items on the side. When it comes to licensing, it's in the longer term. Some elderly license holders would like to surrender their licenses. They are not young enough to run the stores and they don't want to try new things. Perhaps you can get the license back to revitalize the trade. When it comes to Appendix Street, there has been a lot of different initiatives run there. They are quite successful. So bazaars and street selling are popular. During the Golden Week, a lot of travelers have come to Hong Kong. I asked them why. They told me that they like the individual stores because they are different. So the fixed pitch as well as street stores are very well received. I want to talk about the provisional entertainment license. I thank the department for removing restrictions. It was difficult to get it in the past. But last month we had a Middle Eastern cuisine festival. It was successful. This is the icing on the cake. People want to stage street activities to attract more people. So please relax restrictions. It will not reduce costs, but people want to do it because it will bring more people. I do understand that the FEHD will have to vigorously vet license processing, but we want to enrich the experience of visitors. A working group on tourist hotspots put forward 9 projects. A lot of them relate to Tai Pai Dong or cooked food stores, so I hope more will be done. Mr. Chen Pui Leung. Thank you. Hawkers is a culture unique to us. There are fixed-pitched hawkers and itinerant ones. Since the 1970s, the government stopped issuing new licenses, and the succession is not allowed. Number of licenses has dropped. License holders are elderly and probably immobile. If there is no proper management, then we won't be able to see roasted chestnuts in winter in the streets. The operating environment for hawkers is difficult. There are strict restrictions when it comes to inheritance and succession. Family members of license holders most of the time are unable to take over the license. I thank Mr. Leung for moving the motion to give us a chance to have a discussion. We want to preserve the values of hawking. Perhaps the restrictions on licensing can be relaxed, especially when it comes to itinerant ones. Don't make them run at a fixed point. Perhaps the assistants or family members can inherit the license. There can be proper management, and when it's done, consider issuing new licenses. There needs to be a transparent processing regime. Traditional stores should be given priority, say for example those offering street foods or local handicraft. The government needs to streamline process relating to succession and inheritance. There should be a one-stop service to compress processing time. These measures can lower operating threshold, so these activities can continue. The traditional flavor of Hong Kong can be preserved. When it comes to management, we can draw reference from overseas experience. Establish bazaars to put them there, using Singapore as an example. Their hawker culture has been made an intangible heritage. There are many different hawker centers attracting visitors to go there to get a taste of local flavor. Lady Gaga went to these bazaars. When it comes to management of cooked food stores, it can be modernized. From food supply to management is all done in a very modern way. There is also a demerits system. Repeated offenders will have their license suspended. This will ensure safety. The government plays a very important role. When it comes to planning, locations where there is a heavy footfall should be preserved. Hawker bazaars can be put there. It's supported by management and assistance, say for example, subsidy and technical support. This gives youngsters a chance to run their own stores. This is conducive to sustaining and preserving handicraft and local culture. I hope that this will revitalize local economy. I so speak to support the original motion and the amendment. Ms. Nixie Lam. I speak in support of Mr. Leung's motion. It's not just about hawker license. It's about the economy of Hong Kong. Do we need to consider a new way of development? Our society and economy are transforming. Traveler pattern has changed. We need to consider relaxation of legislation. In Fa Yuen Street, Ableu Street, and different communities, say for example Sha Tin and Shenzhen. These are places that you think of when you think of stores and food. When I went to Malaysia on a duty visit, ASEAN representative told me that they love the roast goose from Shenzhen. When visitors come to Hong Kong, they want to eat these gourmet food from a specific location, not in a shopping mall. the government can do some more, say, for example, improving the hardware and enforcement action. I know something about market management. There has been measures put in place to improve the operation. Consumption pattern of visitors has changed. We need to think about the way forward. I visited Japan. As you know that, there is a very famous fish market. The location has moved to a different one. The market operation has been enhanced. There are also guided tours, activities, exhibitions. A multifunctional platform has been created as well. So it has an advantage covering operation, tourism, and business. When it comes to Hong Kong, transportation is an issue. People are concerned about congestion, vehicular congestion, as well as pedestrian congestion. There are many locations all over the territory. In addition to hawker management, we need to think about how to evenly distribute the attractions to attract visitors. We have Sham Shui Po, Temple Street, Up-Liu Street. They have their own characteristics. Perhaps they can be turned into a thematic area. Visitors can make use of virtual reality to plan ahead to see where they would like to go. This will enhance their participation. I have some suggestions. Well, licenses of a time-limited period. This will give youngsters a chance to try to run their stores. They can work with local organizations and personalities to decide what kind of stores they will run. They can also approach various platforms as well as store operators to learn from their experience. Hawkers are different from markets. The former is a lot more flexible. Flexibility should be added so that the development of the trade can be more vibrant. Don't stifle by over-managing it. Otherwise, it will go extinct. We need to preserve it for youngsters. Youngsters want to start their own businesses. This will be a good opportunity.
主席，
Ms. Doreen Kong. Madam Deputy, when I was a primary school student, I worked with my mother as a hawker. I thank Mr. Man-kwong for moving the motion. Our hawker culture used to be our signature. Looking back, the transformation of the hawker culture demonstrates how our economy transformed, and it shows the conflict between city management and development of economies. Hawker used to be seen as one of the most important parts of our economies. Since the 1970s, the government set dedicated zones for itinerant hawkers and fixed-pitch hawkers to sell commodities. In 2009, we relaxed the regulations and we started issue new licenses. However, the number of fixed-pitch hawkers dropped from 20,000 in the 70s to about a few thousand in recent years. We used to be embracive of these hawkers. Now it seems that we are trying to phase them out. Now I'd like to talk about urban civility. or civilization. Hawker culture is a cultural symbol. It's about the livelihood of the people. After World War II, many people sell local delicacies such as full shark fin soups on the streets. The Dumpling Queen story became a movie, and it showcases the Lion Rock's spirit. Hawker stalls is not just a trading zone. It's where people come together to chat. Their smiles, their voice, and the food linked the lives of people together, and it warmed our community, and it became a link connecting different people. This is what we need to treasure and pass on. Hawker culture is seen as something with economic value in other countries. Singapore declared their hawker culture as an inherent intangible cultural heritage. The government allow for transfer and succession of licenses. They put in place a succession scheme and incubation program. Germany, they have a Christmas markets with hawkers and stalls selling handicrafts and commodities, attracting a few million people every year. For Shenzhen, they have been relaxing the restrictions on street economy. They delineate zones for hawkers. They revitalized night markets and vitality of the districts. Looking back, we tend to focus on enforcement, and we tie hawkers with the label of street obstructions. However, public space and open space belong to everyone in Hong Kong. We should turn hawker culture into a cultural symbol of ours. Hong Kong is where East meets West. I think that hawker culture can become a driving force for our economy and tourism industry. In order to vitalize the potential of the hawker culture, the government must review the management policy and draft a more humane regulatory framework. We should integrate hawker culture into our urban design. We should also reinforce cultural conservation and offer training to potential hawkers or licensed hawkers so that they can enhance their competitiveness. The soul of a city is not about skyscrapers, but their people. Our hawker management policy should not be about replacement. We have to reshape their economic values and their culture. By relaxing restrictions, we will be able to turn hawker culture into a cultural asset. Dr. Teck Chi-yun, Madam Deputy, the current hawker policy is not just about management. The current management policy seems to drive all hawkers away, and it is because of three reasons. First of all, the policy goal is misplaced. In 1957, in a hawker report, the then colonial government saw hawker license as a form of social welfare. They allow hawkers to sell commodities to survive. However, currently, we strive to phase hawkers out. We used to have 40,000 hawkers, but as at the end of 2024, we only have 233 itinerant hawkers, a drop of 99.3%. Second, the government adopt a warning first and enforcement later approach. However, in actual operation, the government often take enforcement action when they receive complaints. In 2024, we have taken about 5,205 prosecutions against hawkers. Third, there is misallocation of resources. The government dedicates $2.5 billion on hawker management. They hire 2,400 enforcement officers to take about 120,000 enforcement actions. Some people think that the strict management will allow us to manage our city better, but if we look at the mainland, we can see that a good management will allow us to vitalize the economy. Singapore declared the hawker culture an intangible cultural asset. The Shenzhen rolled out the night economy idea, and the night market actually contribute to 60% of the business. Hawker policy involves many different departments, but we don't have a clear coordinator. The FHD said that they will strive to phase out hawkers on streets. The enforcement officers only tell the hawkers that they should not sell at a particular location, but they won't suggest them a location to move to. Faced with intense competition from other cities in the Greater Bay Area, when Shenzhen and Guangzhou are developing their street economy, it seems that we are trying to make our unique culture, hawker culture, become extinct. I think that we should turn the $2.5 billion into something that we spend on maintaining the hawker culture. First of all, the government must review the hawker management policy by issuing new licenses. Allow hawkers to transfer the license so that young people can join the market. We should learn from Shenzhen, Taiwan, and Bangkok. We should delineate areas for hawkers to sell commodities. We should also allow open flame cooking. Responsible government officers must listen to the people. Second, we have to vitalize hawker economies. At busy districts, we should set up dedicated zones to allow hawkers to do business there. We should promote the development of night economy. We should replan the Lady Streets and Temple Street. Third, we must reform the hawker control team. We should focus on support instead of enforcement. We should offer hawker training program, offer low-interest loan or rent concessions to allow grassroots people to do business. Fourth, we should declare a hawker culture as an intangible asset or heritage. We should promote this culture globally. We should also develop a mobile application with a map identifying where the hawkers are. We should be more open-minded. We should be embracive of the hawkers. Thank you. I also submit. Ms. Judy Chan. Madam Deputy, I speak in support of Mr. Man-kwong's motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. Hong Kong is a vibrant city where East meets West. Hawker culture is part of our lives, and that's one of the reasons why so many tourists come to Hong Kong. But as our economies develop, we are regulating hawkers, whether they are fixed pitch hawkers or itinerant hawkers. Local delicacies with Hong Kong character, such as Thai python, roast chestnuts, may become extinct very soon. As hawkers find it more and more difficult to survive, we have to reform our succession and transfer policy. There is an aging problem in the industry. I put in an oral question earlier on the relevant topic. For fixed pitch hawkers or Tai Pai Dong, the government is trying to relax restrictions on them. Previously, only an immediate family member can inherit the license. Currently, if the hawker can obtain the support of the district council, the government may still allow the hawkers to transfer their license to non-immediate family members. Currently, we only have 97 itinerant hawkers. These type of hawkers will not be allowed to pass on or transfer their license to anyone else. I think that the government should review the current policy so that people who are interested in joining the trade can become a hawker. By this, we can retain this street culture. If we can relax the relevant transfer and succession requirements, then potential entrepreneurs may have more opportunities here. This is a win-win situation because this will also vitalize our local economy. The hawker culture in Hong Kong is faced with significant challenges. If they are not well supported, then they will become extinct. As we see, tourists today like to go to unique areas in Hong Kong. And they like to experience our lifestyles. Tourists come here not just go to famous spots to take photos. Many of them like to have a taste of what it's like to live in Hong Kong. Hawker culture is a very important part of it. I hope that the government will review our hawker management policy by being innovative. We have to enhance our attractiveness to revitalize our local economy. I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. Thank you.
Ms. Eunice Yeung, Deputy President, I speak in support of Mrs. Scott Leung's motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. This is not just related to the livelihood of hawkers, but also the vibrancy of our economy and diversified development of our city, as well as inheritance of our culture. Now, there is a marked decrease in our economic vibrancy. Since the pandemic, many SMEs and retail businesses are struggling. At night time, whether in urban areas or in the new territories, many shops are closed at 9 p.m. The streets are empty. It affects the living standard of Hong Kongers, as well as undermining our attractiveness as an international city. Markets, public markets, and the hawker culture have been part of our history. Now, I have been concerned about the developments of nighttime economy and public market. Now, with more hawking activities, the nighttime scene will be more vibrant. Last year, the government launched the Night Vibe campaign. There were many stumbling blocks initially, but the results were significant. A large amount of visitors were attracted to the markets. It shows that with sufficient policy support, we can make our nighttime economy vibrant. Now, to ensure the inheritance of hawker culture, we need to relax the regulation. There are a lot of restrictions in terms of business hours, types of goods to be sold, as well as licensing conditions. Many interested entrepreneurs are deterred. There must be a more flexible regulatory approach. For example, can we have thematic hawker areas in each district so that different themes can be set based on the local characteristics? We should conduct trials on weekend bazaars and also through lease concessions and other facilitation measures which encourage young people to join the trade and help the trade to transform itself. We should also professionalize and modernize the trade. We can introduce technologies to enhance management of the stores and food safety and boost consumer confidence. There should also be e-payment so that the hawkers can keep abreast with time and expand their source market. This will also alleviate the concerns on food safety and security. Now, since we are developing the nighttime economy, we should think beyond this scope. We need to have themes and gimmicks to attract tourists. The government should collaborate with shopping malls operators and land developers. We should use the unrented parts of shopping malls and other places to boost the nighttime activities. Now, for example, in Changsha, there is a nighttime market with air conditioning. There are also toilets and other hygienic facilities, which provides the shoppers with a good experience. Now, hygiene, environment issues, as well as public security, food safety, these are all concerns of the public. We have to ensure that the hawking stores are clean. There should be regular disposal of refuse. There should be regulation and monitoring of food safety standard. There should be a dedicated team under the FEHD to serve the hawkers. Training and financial support should be given to SMEs and small retailers. There should be startup counseling and also flexible lease contracts to help the hawker trade to upgrade themselves. As long as the governments consider relaxing the existing policy and draw reference to the mainland and foreign and overseas experience, we are poised to establish our own brand of hawker markets in Hong Kong and bring back life to our economy. Thank you. Mr. Chan Kin-po. Thank you, Deputy President. The hawker culture in Hong Kong is the vessel of generations of memories. It is our local characteristic. On-street hawking activities have witnessed our growth. They are also our local culture. However, with societal changes, the existing hawker control or management policies are out of date. It will make our hawker culture go extinct. It is very much in need of an update. So I thank the mover and the amender for their efforts. Now, there are two types of licenses: fixed pitch licenses and itinerant licenses. There is an inheritance crisis. Last year, there were some 4,880 fixed pitch hawker licenses and 244 itinerant licenses. Now, those aged 70 or above accounts for 78% of the total number of licensees. Itinerant licenses cannot be transferred or succeeded. It leads to the aging problem of licensees. Now, if the government's policy is that we need to keep the hawking culture alive, there must be an enhanced succession system. The restrictions on succession and transferal must be relaxed. Second, the survival space of itinerant hawkers have been reduced because of our urban development. Now, the new cityscape and streetscape has made the operation of itinerant hawkers difficult. Now, many hawking activities would be prosecuted. Now, there must be a designated hawking area in urban areas, or move the itinerant hawkers into public wet markets. Otherwise, there will be an orderly on-street hawking activities. Now, there are also restrictions on the arrangements of assistants. Itinerant licensees cannot employ an assistant to help their operation. Many older hawkers have to close the business early because they can't leave their stall for 1 minute. We need to amend the hawkers regulation to allow itinerant hawkers to employ assistants so that they can operate more flexibly. While reviewing the hawker policy, we need to set standards for food safety, especially for hawkers selling food. We should encourage hawkers to improve their cooking utensils so that they can keep up with the modern food safety standard and attract more young people to join the trade. Hawkers are a cultural icon, but traveling patterns have changed. The more characteristic a place is, the more popular they are. Now, the working group on tourist hotspots have announced 9 characteristic projects. Now, I urge the government to help hawkers to continue to operate to embody the idea of tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. Ms. Connie Lam. Deputy President, I speak in support of Mr. Scott Lang's motion to review the hawker management policy and invigorate the local economy. Now, from the clothing stores in ladies' markets, electronic components on Avenue Street, and the Tai Pai Dong in Temple Street, these are unique cultural icons and our tourism assets. However, with the over-stringent regulation, the trade is dying out. It is not just an economic topic, but also inheritance of culture, social vibrancy, and city management. Now, there are 7 types of licenses, for example, boot, black, cook food, newspaper, tradesman, and so on. Now, the application takes 7 days for appointments of a deputy. It hurts the flexible operation of stores. Now, license only have a validity period of 1 year. That's why hawkers usually sell cheap merchandise sourced from Taobao because of the short business cycle. The government should streamline the license renewal system. For example, an automated license renewal system for hawkers to reduce the manpower involved. Other indexes like public opinions or public sentiments and also performances should also be taken into account. The government should also expand the list of items allowed to be sold by hawkers. Besides more stringent regulation on food items, for other items, hawkers should be allowed to adjust their business decision by simply notifying the government of the change. Now, concerning pilot sites for hawker bazaars, these concession and other facilitation measures should be offered to young people to help them enter the market. I think this will help bridge the inheritance gap in the hawker trade. Deputy President, there is a serious gap in the trade. 70% of licensees are aged 60 or above. Now, in young people's mind, the hawker industry is a low-skill, low-return industry. Now, according to Deloitte, 42% of surveyed graduates are thinking about starting their own businesses. However, the expensive rents in Hong Kong have dampened their spirits. How can we encourage young people to enter the trade while keeping the operation sustainable is a difficult topic. Some shopping malls organize bazaar regularly. For example, in the Kwai Chung markets, there are usually cabinet stores for young people to sell their merchandise. But we really need a common platform facing the travelers and locals alike to showcase our culture. We need to help young people meet their need to start a business. And we need to make full use of vacated fixed pitch hawker stalls. Now in Singapore, young people who would like to rent a space to start a business would get certain rent discounts for a period of time. This is a measure to help novice entrepreneurs. Now, to offer targeted support, the government should set clear KPIs. For example, increase in annual turnover and also job opportunities created. Regular assessment should be conducted, while performers should be given more support to expand their sales to more places or even overseas. This will make the hawker industry become a business nurturing base. Thank you.
Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I speak in support of Mr. Man-kwong's motion. Before the motion, I met with Mr. LEUNG to ask him about the meanings of certain terms. Say, for example, what policies are to be reviewed. I've also had a discussion with him about the types of commodities to be sold. I asked him what he meant by core. We realized that it is very difficult to make adjustments. The policy of fixed pitch hawker management is a patchwork. I have been listening to members. There are suggestions about providing resources to get holders to surrender their license, but it's not feasible. Well, you can't get the endorsement of the Treasury. Well, every time when there is a license surrendering, something must have had happened. Say, for example, a fire. I remember there was one time, there was the chimney effect. Some stores had to be vacated to ensure there is a means of escape. That's why there was an exercise of license surrendering. Does it have any merits? It's very difficult to say. Store owners just want to make a living. It never occurred to them at that time that they would become a tourist attraction. At that time, stores are there to meet the needs of the community. I've met with Mr. Man-kwong. I've also talked to store operators. They are of the view that, there are high requirements, not from the FEHD, but say from the tourism board. During festivals, they are given resources to decorate their stores, but the amount is small, $20,000. Store owners had to go find the decorations and the labor to put it up. When the tourism board talked about how much they have spent in their work report, I asked them about giving pittance to store owners to try to get the most out of them. I think that they should be more generous with local operators instead of spending a lot on overseas publicity. If you want to enhance the special characteristics of street stores, then I think the Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism should go and have a visit. Other secretaries should also go have a visit as well. The FEHD is having difficulties because they have to enforce the law. out of safety concerns. The penalty for street obstruction has been enhanced. Some people support it, whereas others oppose to it. It's difficult to just rely on one single department to promote our economy. I think the intention of Mr. Leung is good. But perhaps it should be more focused. Start with Temple Street. Work on a pilot basis. Perhaps the whole street can be under the portfolio of Miss Rosanna Law. Talk to residents and liaise with them. They are used to having people singing in the street anyway. You need to have a more focused approach to enhance quality. Mr. Lai Tung Kwok. Street stores play an important role in the old days. 1980s, the manufacturing industry was leaving Hong Kong, and in 1990s there was the financial crisis. So street stores, because of its flexibility, offers a way out. People have done some studies saying that when the economy is bad, there are more stores. The number of stores have dropped. There are about 4,600 stores in the urban districts, about 100 or so in the new territories. There was a relocation exercise of fixed pitch hawking stores. The exercise was not very well received. There are also calls for relaxation of licensing conditions to promote street vending activities and night markets. I think that the old ways don't work anymore. We need to consider Hong Kong's local situation and then find out what we need. Of course, management issues have to be addressed. But how can we provide a more diversified experience to visitors? I think that's the core of the issue. There are lots of vibrant markets. There is both sides of the Thames, in London, in Fukuoka City, in Germany. They all have their own characteristics. In Hong Kong, we have the annual Wine and Dine Festival. In the West Kowloon Cultural District, there was a recent coffee event. They've all been very well received. In street stores, prices of products are cheap but not very attractive. Say in the ladies' market, on the tourism board's website, they try to sell ladies' market, saying that a wide range of products are available. It's a very popular venue for souvenirs. But if you go there, you realize that it's very different from this description. Over the years, the products sold there have not changed. You find T-shirts of I Love Hong Kong or run-of-the-mill products. If you are unable to attract local and overseas visitors, and if the store owners are unable to make changes, on top of that, there is the calcified policy. The result is an unattractive ladies' market. Visitors don't even want to go there to take photographs. The current hawker culture and management policy is calcified. The regime is dated. Currently, there are two different categories. One is for fixed pitch hawkers, the other one for itinerant hawkers. There are 7 types under fixed pitch. There are bootleg, boot black, handicraft, and barbers. They are outdated, these categories. This stifles the development of hawking activities. I asked the government to reclassify the different types of licenses add new types that meets modern needs. Try to attract youngsters to join the trade. The government needs to be flexible and needs an adjustable mechanism. Focusing on bazaar will not revitalize our economy, but it's one of the ways. It also enriches the experience of visitors. We should not focus on quantity. We should focus on quality to attract different types of visitors. I so submit. Professor William Wong. Hawkers is a unique culture to Hong Kong. Hawking is a way to make a living. Street stores is a different shopping experience. In the past, you see street stores everywhere. But because of urban redevelopment and the stoppage of license issuance, we see fewer and fewer of street stores. Hong Kong people go to spend on the mainland. The consumption market here is lackluster. Street economy is a way for the general public to make money. Mr. Leung moves the motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. It is timely. On the mainland, a few years ago, they promoted a street store economy. During special times, this provides job opportunities. It also revitalizes the local economy. However, in Hong Kong, because of geographical constraints, it's difficult to find space. But in Wong Tai Sin and Lam Chun, where there is a rich local culture, it's a good location to establish a street store cultural area. In Lam Chun, there can be an area for digital praying. Visitors can scan a QR code and have their wishes projected on a wall. Then they can have a copy of it for their own keepsake or as a souvenir to give to others. Virtual reality can be used to show the process of manufacturing of the handicrafts. The government can set up an innovation technology flea market. This will be a platform for youngsters to showcase their new products. It will be a dedicated market to sell innovative and technological products, say apps. Stores can use 3D printing to make key rings and other little trinkets. On urban management, we need to use technology to manage street stores. When it comes to government to business, store owners can make applications electronically, can pay electronically. This will enhance the government's efficiency. When it comes to government to customers or consumers, members of the public can search for operating hours and relevant information on the internet. They can also make use of the map to plan their trip. They can use the internet to search. The data can be used to analyze consumption patterns. This is a process and an opportunity for transformation. The street vending culture of Singapore is on the list of intangible heritage. This is a valuable asset. The government of Hong Kong should preserve street vending culture so that the collective culture can be preserved. It can be turned into an economic drive as well. I speak in support of the motion and the amendments.
Mr. Robert Lee, thank you. As the government said, street vending is a way of living of Hong Kong people. But since 1970s, the government no longer issued new hawker licenses. As a result, the number of licensees dropped from over 9,000 in 2000 and to about 500 recently. If the government does not make a change, then the hawker culture and street vending will be completely phased out. Given the lifestyle change of the people, there is diverse views on hawkers. We have a densely populated city. Street vending may cause street obstruction or environmental nuisance. Fire hazards may rise as a result, but there is economic and cultural value in hawker culture. It's very popular among tourists. We should preserve it. So I'd like to share with you my views on hawker culture and how the government should review the hawker management policy. Let me share with you my experience in New York. I noticed that hawkers can sell commodities by making use of a single simple cart. We promoted food truck. Hawkers using a cart to sell will not obstruct the street to a great extent, and they will meet the demand of local districts. The New York City talked about reform of hawker management policy. They're considering increasing the number of hawker licenses. They recognize the industry's contribution to government revenue and improvement of immigrants' livelihood. The Singaporean government linked hawker culture up with local districts. In 2020, the hawker culture become one of the items under the ICH of Humanity on the UNESCO representative list. The Singaporean government set up food markets and bazaars to allow the hawkers to sell commodities and local delicacies. Their government also recognized the contribution of hawker culture in succession of various cooking and food. I think that the government should roll out assistance scheme. We can make reference to Singapore and UK in setting up a digital program to assist hawkers in going digital. We should encourage them to participate in local activities. Some new immigrants can work as a hawker to showcase their food from their countries and to enhance their connection to the community. Now, on the street obstruction issue, I think that via good management, say for example, by setting up dedicated zone at business districts, we can allow workers and employees to have an alternatives when they go for lunch. They can also perhaps have their watch repaired at these hawker zones. This will allow some hawkers to continue to survive. There is a report saying that a 60-year-old watch repairer was issued a hawker license, and He took a long time in order to secure the license. Our economy is not just supported by big corporations. We rely on small and medium enterprises as well as hawkers. They provide us with economic options and diversify our economy. I hope that the government will recognize the value of the culture to revitalize local economy. I so speak in support of the motion and amendment. Mr. Yang Man-kit. Thank you. First of all, I thank Mr. Man-kwong for moving the motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. Lady Street, Atlee Street, Chungyuan Street, Temple Street, they are rich with hawker culture, and they became popular tourist hotspots because of their characteristics. However, the hawker industry is going extinct. Since 1970s, the government stopped issuing new fixed pitch and itinerant hawker licenses. They tightened the succession and transfer requirements. They encourage hawkers to surrender their license. As more and more people go to the mainland to shop, coupled with challenges brought about by e-commerce, it's more and more difficult for hawkers to survive. If there's no policy support, hawker culture will no longer exist very soon. Street vending is the characteristics of Bangkok. In the mainland, we have night markets. Seoul, Korea, there are a lot of street stalls. In order for us to vitalize street economy, we have to rely on not just a single department. We should have everyone work together to promote a local economy. Hawker culture is one of our characteristics. I think that the government should preserve it. Given the aging issue in the hawker industry, the government should relax the restrictions. We should allow not just immediate family member to inherit the license. We should relax the restrictions on assistance. We should learn from Singapore. They offer rent concessions for young people who work at hawkers. We should also invite sellers or vendors of local handicrafts to become a hawker. The West Kowloon invited the charcoal grilled egg waffle seller to become a stall operators in one of their festivals. By this, we can encourage more young people to join the trade. In the past, the government has made various efforts to vitalize street economy. They rolled out a food truck pilot scheme, but due to the high threshold, expensive food, and tight restrictions, the scheme was not deemed a success. After COVID, in order to vitalize the night market, the government rolled out the Temple Street Night Market. I think that was successful. It integrated arts and cuisine. At the initial stage, there were a lot of tourists and locals who visited the market. Although the footfall dropped later on, but I think that the project overall is successful. As we all know, Singapore concentrates itinerant hawkers at a foot market there. Their hawker culture has become an intangible cultural heritage of them. Bangkok government also learned from Singapore. They relocate their hawkers to a dedicated hawker center. I think that we should learn from their experience. Coupled with our experience from the Temple Street Night Market, I think that we can create a hawker street. We can inject new elements into these streets, renovate the stalls, and put in place photo-taking spots. We can designate certain areas as hawker bazaars to allow unlicensed people to join the trade and to sell commodities for a short period of time, for example, during festivals. The government can include these places into the itinerary for in-depth tourism. I so seek in support of the motion. Dr. Wendy Hong. President, there is a term micromanagement in terms of corporate management. It means that management overemphasize on details, and it undermines efficiency of the employees. It seems that the government is also micromanaging our city. In the past, whenever the government made a mistake, the opposition came, make a big fuss out of it, and try to smear the government because of it. That's why the government was hesitant to roll out policies. And there tended to be overregulation. The government was very conservative back then. That's why our economy could not be developed. The motion moved by Mr. Man-kwong gives us an opportunity to make a step forward. In many developed economies, we see hawkers. It showcases the local food culture and creativity, and is how tourists can come to experience a city. As the threshold of becoming a hawker is low, during bad times is a way out for some of the grassroots people. However, we used to just focus on urban management, public safety, and environmental hygiene in terms of our management. Since the 1970s, the government no longer issued new licenses. There are strict succession and transfer requirements to current licensees. There are restrictions on the number of commodities that can be sold. The number of hawkers dropped from about 20,000 to 2,000 in 2023. I think that a hawker economy can create job opportunities, and it can be a tool to help young grassroots people make a living. Our labor participation rate is significantly lower than our neighboring economies and is continuing to decline. Many people exited the labor force. How can we encourage the unemployed to contribute? I think that we can learn from Professor who won the Nobel Prize by establishing a micro entrepreneurship. For example, by granting an uncollateralized low-interest loan to grassroots people. For example, allow them to create a small business such as nail polishing stores. That can be a starting point for a lot of people. I think that we should empower the grassroots people by relaxing restrictions on hawker culture. In the mainland, they have been adopting a more open and flexible approach. In Shenzhen, they amended the urban management and safety guidelines. They don't prohibit street vending. They designate street vending areas for these hawkers. I think that we should learn from it. Say, for example, at PRH estates managed by Housing Authority, we can designate zones for people to sell commodities. Their operating hours can be different from that of the wet market in order to avoid competition. Food manufacturing license has a high threshold. Licensees have to meet strict requirements on fire, safety, and a lot of different areas. I think that the government should be more open-minded in providing facilitation to grassroots entrepreneurs. Hawker culture is how we can vitalize the local economy, and it can bring a warmth to our local districts. So submit.
嚴光議員。
Mr. Yim Kong. President, I thank Mr. Scott Leung for his motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy, so that we can discuss the contribution once given by the hawker economy. Now, because of overly stringent regulation and limited development space, the number of fixed-pitch hawker stores have decreased by 40% to less than 5,000 last year. Now, how can we keep these characteristic businesses going and find a balance between urban developments and survival of the businesses? It is an important topic for the government to study. Characteristic hawker bazaars are worth keeping. They are convenient for livelihood of local residents. They are also famous check-in spots for tourists. It should be part of our city's name card. In 2020, Singapore's hawker culture has been included on the list of ICH. In Taiwan, there are more than 3,000 businesses in nighttime markets attracting hundreds of thousands of footfall. Now, for core business districts like Central, Wan Chai, and so on, at nighttime, the utilization of streetscape is very low. So we should allow hawkers to do business at night. Now, for example, in Bangkok, in daytime, the CBD would transform into a vibrant nighttime economy. Same for Seoul in Korea. Now, the core business district in front of the famous Lotte Hotel, at nighttime, hawkers would be allowed to do business on the pavements. Xi'an, Hangzhou, and Changsha, the nighttime markets are also famous tourist spots. They are the icons of the city's vibrancy. In the long run, by collaborating with the private sector, we should revitalize the public markets in Temple Street. Now, for example, the Chinatown in Yokohama in Japan, we should draw reference from their example to enhance our public market. We should also duplicate the experience into Temple Street so that it can become a one-stop platform for purchasing quality commodities and gourmet food. Also, we should draw reference to the street economy in the mainland. By using AI, we can inject vitality into the operating capacity of hawkers. In terms of policy, the government should lessen its enforcement frequencies and involve the trade in management. Now, according to the past 6 months figure, the FEHD spent some $2.3 billion in managing public markets and hawking activities. We are spending too much on regulating this dying industry. It's time to review the amount of resource put into it. Now, we should streamline the approval mechanism for licenses and streamline the procedures. And the thresholds are too high. We need to unleash the business vitality in the community. President, promoting hawker economy and reviewing hawker management policy, it will supplement the diversity of our economy and enhance our attractiveness while injecting vibrancy into our economy. It will also ensure inheritance of our local culture. Now, let's seize the opportunity of the myriad measures offered by the Central People's Government to help Hong Kong to boost our economy so that there are colorful sparks in our economy. I so submit. Thank you. Dr. Sari Lee. President, now our iconic streets are closely related to the hawking culture. When I first joined the LegCo, I served the Kowloon West District. Mong Kok, Sham Shui Po, and Yao Chi Mong. Those, and also the constituency served by Mr. Scott Leung, there are lots of hawkers in the area. And there are a large number of iconic streets in the area. Temple Street, Lady Street, Palace Street, and New Reclamation Street, these are all iconic streets. In Sham Shui Po, there is Avenue Street. It's also very iconic. Subsequently, I served in other districts in the territory. So I got to know a lot of iconic streets in Central and Western as well. Palace Street, Flower Street, Flower Terrace, and Stanley. They are streets well loved by our citizens and tourists alike. We are grateful for hawkers for their support for our work. Organizations and stakeholders serving the communities have close contacts with hawkers. So many members have urged the government to offer policy to support the continual survival of hawkers. However, society changes at a pace no one has expected. Now, I share the same feeling with Mr. Stephen Ho concerning today's motion. Secretary for Environment and Ecology usually takes the perspective of regulation, but there are other elements like culture and tourism. I don't have anything against the EEB, but if you are the one handling the issue, you would usually take the regulatory approach rather than the combined development of culture, sports, and tourism. In any event, we hope you would take our views and study them. Now, about the advent of online shopping. Hawkers operate individually, and there is a lack of support for them. That explains why some of the merchandise they sell are outdated. So this is something that we have to ponder upon. I have several thoughts. First of all, we shouldn't take an across-the-board approach on setting hawker policies. There are well-loved streets like Temple Street, flower markets, and fruit markets. There's much potential to combine with tourism and cultural development. For other places, should we allow large-scale hawking activities to take place in other areas? Well, we have to be careful because it may cause a lot of complaints and concerns. Now, positioning. To combine the hawker culture with tourism and culture, we need other bureaus to be involved. Now, there are good examples in the mainland and other places, but for these iconic streets, they are products of significant investments by the government. The entire overhaul project is immense. Now, besides resources, one has to consider the impact on other businesses around. The business environment is already difficult, so we don't want to cause any unfair competition. Now, sustainable development. In the future, iconic streets should combine technologies, culture, or even current technologies to make them thematic. Only then can sustainable development be achieved. Now, we need new iconic streets, but we have to be very careful about their locations. There are successful examples like West Kowloon, Promenade, also good places. Ice cream vans are something that we miss as well. Now, food trucks, they are too large. Please stop speaking. Mr. Brave Chan, thank you, President, and thank you, Under Secretary. I think we all agree about today's motion. I thank Mr. Scott LEUNG for his motion. My point is, we need to enhance the hawker management policy and invigorate the local economy, including economy with local characteristics. Now, unless you are a Gen Z person, you would know the joy of enjoying food in the nighttime market. People queue for the delicacies. In Taiwan and other cities in the country, including Shenzhen, and also Hong Kong, there are lots of nighttime markets or bazaars. Of course, it was a product of the economy back then. The economy was poor, and everyone has to make a living for their family. Many hawkers fed their families with their hawking business. But that was the past century. In recent years, there are more and more shopping malls, and there are fewer and fewer hawkers, not to mention licensed ones. And also with regulatory enhancements, the ecosystem has been weakened. Many shopping malls are like a city within itself. They offer everything. Now with the global economic turmoil, SME or even micro businesses are opportunities for people to make a living. These specific suggestions have been made by my colleagues in relation to gathering statistics and better management. I will not labor on those points. Now, street food and now street characteristics, we salute hawkers because they refuse to be idled. Now, for example, the dumpling queen, her dumplings are delicious. Now, in reality, it is very difficult to get an approval to sell food on the street, but I think the situation has improved with the help of the FEHD. Now, I was involved in helping the boat people and the fishermen to fill out the forms to apply for a license to sell seafood. Now, even graduates from social work majors didn't know how to fill in that form because the details required were so specific. So I'm pleased that now the mechanism has been streamlined. By taking down barriers and removing red tapes, we can unleash the economic robustness. Now, I applaud the canteen in Lechko. They serve egg waffles, and the quality is very good. So, when there are great fluctuations in the external environment, we should think outside the box. We should draw reference to Beijing, Shenzhen, and the other province in China, Taiwan, and also Singapore. They encourage the hawker economy and give them appropriate locations to operate. Now, I like how the day and night buy turn out. And I thank the district officers for helping the food businesses to get a license. But the cost is rather high if you ask them, the district officers, to help. If we can streamline the procedure, then we can benefit thousands of households and encourage the grassroots people to come out and contribute to the economy. Thank you.
Dr. Lau Chi-Pang. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Leung's motion on hawker management. I also support Mr. Kwok's amendment. We talk about hawkers as a collective memory. Starting from the 20th century, after the war, we started to see street vendors and hawkers. The time was very different at that time. The economy was poor and it was not easy to find a place to eat out. People would go to a store to buy a bottle of water, but now we go to just any convenience store. Street vendors was a place where people would go to get something to eat or drink. When you go to Chinese restaurants now, sometimes you see a bowl and you clean your utensils and bowls and cups with hot water there. It actually came from the old days. That time, in street side stores, you would need to clean your cups and bowls because there were traffic nearby, so there would be dust everywhere. People talk about Tai Pai Tong. People talk about squatting to eat there. Well, I love Tai Pai Tongs, but I've never squatted to eat there. When people had to squat to eat, it was in the very old days. In Central, now some stores would actually have areas where you could squat to eat. I advise against it because you might not be able to get up. When it comes to chopsticks, you may not know what you need to do. You would take your chopsticks to go to the pot where the vendor cook the noodles and put your chopsticks there to clean it. You now see clusters of street vendors in areas dotting around Hong Kong, but there were a lot more in the old days. In the old times, during the evening, there was a large area where there were numerous vendors. It was like a nightclub. But now, people talk about management. There is a reason. Because you don't know how the food was processed. And back in the old days, you would see people clean the ingredients. Now then you understand why there needs to be management. In the evening, you see street vendors coming out to work. That means there is a need for them to be there. And we need a new model, such as street blocks. We need to preserve it as an intangible heritage. I speak in support of the motion and the amendment. Mr. Peter Shield. I thank Mr. Leung for his original motion and Mr. Kwok for his amendment. I heard a lot of childhood memories from members. They talked about tai pai dongs and they talked about street vendors. I'm sure the public share these sentiments. The Secretary, at his opening speech, talked about ensuring that the hygiene of the area will not be affected. A balance has to be struck. That is why street vendors are sent to operate in fixed pitches or public markets as well as fixed location bazaars. Well, one of my constituents is a vending association, so street store operators are my constituents. When it comes to fixed pitch hawking areas as well as cooked food stores, there are 53 of these areas. There are still about 240 itinerant licenses. There is another category, newspaper. They have hawker license. My constituents always ask me to talk to the government not to raise the rent too high. They also talk about the types of commodities. As in Mr. Leung's motion, there are in general 12 types of commodities. Well, the sale of cigarettes low, newspapers don't sell well. Vendors have been asking for an expansion of types of commodities. There is another request from them. License holders may be in the 80s. They are unable to tend to the stores. They ask that assistants be allowed to operate. They also ask what would happen when they passed away. They want someone to inherit the license. When it comes to bazaars with characteristics, I think it's down to the specific locations. Temple Street, W Street, Ladies Market. In these areas they work, but in other areas that's only about 20 or 30 stores in half a street. It's not easy to turn it into a thematic area. You need to draw in a large number of visitors. I support Ladies Market and Temple Street. There is a pedestrian precinct along Siam Choi Street, so your proposal works there. It draws a lot of visitors, but it doesn't mean that you have to copy and paste the same model in every district. I think it's difficult to find periphery areas to operate these bazaars in all districts either. The government's been monitoring the rental of fixed pitch stores. Perhaps the government can help with publicity. The amount of subsidy is small. If you want to enhance publicity without affecting local residents, then you need to organize more activities. In some areas, at about 7 or 8 o'clock, then the activities, the operation will have to stop. I think you need to get support from the local community as well. Mr. Michael Look, I support the motion and the amendment. Well, you have heard a lot of inspiring stories of street vendors turned entrepreneurs. There is one selling dumplings, another selling different types of food. Dr. Lau talked about history. But we see nowadays new approach on management. A night vibe is a successful initiative. What we hear is that among these success, there is one drawback. The operating hours are short. Food truck is another example that, well, when it's not successful because of the huge upfront investment, you need to overcome the difficulties. Well, when it comes to street vendors, then there are other difficulties. Say, for example, street obstruction, hygiene, and law and order. Well, people think that if you eat from a street store, then you will get stomach problems. There will be fumes from the cooking and the strong smell maybe. In Shenzhen, I visited a skewer store. There is an extractor that extracts the fume from the stove and discharge it elsewhere. There is a thin cover to stop the smell and fume from escaping. In the store, there is a mini fridge to keep the ingredient fresh. There are actually smart carts. The carts handle the waste as well as refrigeration issues. I think in addition to the government departments, you can collaborate with NGOs as well as trade associations. On the mainland, there are associations that act on behalf of individual vendors to talk to government departments. This is a way to handle complaints. You don't have to clear out vendors simply because you've received a complaint. You need to see if the complaint is reasonable or not. Another issue is impact on other merchants and shops. Well, after you have eaten from street stores, you will go to a restaurant because street food doesn't fill you. Restaurants told me that street stores actually attract people to go to the area, and it boosts business for them as well. Regarding value adding, I suggest that a cultural element should be incorporated. Busking is another element worth considering. You can eat, shop while watching street performances. This helps with the entrepreneurship of Hong Kong. Visitors, when they come to Hong Kong, will see that Hong Kong is still very vibrant at night time. Hawkers will make sure that there are activities even late into the night. They are not an outdated species. You can make good use of them, have specific measures tailored to the needs of different districts to keep them alive.
主席，感謝。
Mr. Benson Look. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Man-kwong for moving the motion on reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. I also thank Mr. KWOK Wai-keung for moving the amendment. Hawker culture and street vending are Hong Kong's characteristics. The government has all along been focusing on regulating hawking. They take enforcement actions against illegal hawking in order to minimize street vending activities. However, hawker culture has become characteristics of ours and tourist hotspots. The government, in order to vitalize the city, organized many events such as day and night vibes. Many different industries participated in these time-limited bazaars. As the government is trying to implement the principle or idea of tourism is everywhere, with appropriate policy support, I believe that we will be able to help hawker culture grow. At the hawker zones, we smell food and we see people, they talk together. We organized a bazaar at the waterfront promenade in Wan Chai. It was very popular. It vitalized the local districts, and there were a lot of people who went to the market. On the mainland, they have rich experience in street and urban management. They just don't just focus on regulation. They promote consumption of tourists and local residents by vitalizing the hawker culture. I can share with you an example. I worked in Qingdao. So earlier on, I visited a Lichuan night market there. As we all know, Lichuan Night Market is named as one of the 15 most famous night markets in the mainland. It's in front of a large shopping center. The shopping center leases out the plaza in front of them for the market to operate. They don't charge a high rent. And the market was supported by local government. There were about 300 stalls there on the day when I visited. They offered Qingdao beer coupled with their local delicacies and drinks. They even have hot pots there. One thing that we can learn from this plaza is that during the day, they open up the plaza for women to dance and men to exercise. During the nighttime, they adopt this model of setting up in the morning and dismantling at the evening by establishing a market. In 1 hour and a half, they turn the market into an empty plaza for people to use in the morning. The location of hawker markets should be located at extended zone of business districts so that people can walk there without affecting normal traffic. By this, we can drive footfall from the large business district to this extended area. Also, we should learn from the mainland's approach of having stalls set up in the morning and dismantle at night. We also have to work on the shop combination. It has to meet the demand of tourists and local residents at the prevailing time. The entry threshold should be low. Take Lichuan Night Market as an example. I talked to some of the vendors. Many slashers and young people became hawkers at night while they have a day job. They often partner up with their friends to set up the stalls at the night market. So having this hawker culture does not only provide more job opportunities for young people, but also allow us to implement the idea of tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. Hawker culture as a unique characteristics of ours, I hope that the government will play the role as a facilitator Thank you. Mr. Hon KWOK. President, I thank Mr. Man-kwong for moving the motion on hawker management policy. This issue has been outstanding for a long time. That's why hawkers are being phased out. For fixed pitch hawkers, we're talking about pitch delineated on the ground. If we can develop this culture well, then it can drive entrepreneurship and our economy. However, a fixed pitch hawker policy is not up to date. The current restrictions pose a lot of constraints. The consumption patterns of people have changed, and due to the growth of online shopping, there was not a lot of footfall at the fixed-pitched hawking areas. At the initial stage of our economic development, government tried to regulate the number of hawkers by imposing a licensing regime. We have Lady Street and Temple Street, Abdu Street, and Taiyuan Street. These used to be places where tourists would go. But according to the government statistics, after COVID, on Lady Streets, there were 40 licensees who surrendered their licenses to the government. We have vacant stalls there. For the remaining vendors, due to the insufficient footfall, they had a hard time doing business. So the street in Central, the stalls of operators have a hard time surviving either. As the licensing fee is cheaper than shop rentals, it should be easier for them to survive. But it seems that the reality says otherwise. So I think that we need to offer them support. Currently, stalls have to set up in the morning and dismantle at night at Lady Streets. Hawkers are usually seniors. They find it difficult to adopt such an approach, and it's difficult for them also to pass on their licenses. Many of them choose to retire instead of going through the procedures of transferring the license. I wonder if the government want to keep the culture. If they do, we have to review the hawker management policy. If we look at other cities in the world and mainland, they have many markets and bazaars. Take Singapore, Taipei, and Thailand as an example. They have different types of markets. I talked about a trunk market. People selling commodities at the trunk of their cars don't have to set up as stalls. They can be flexible. In Shanghai, they also have many different types of markets. At Huanpu, they also have a bazaar that attracted a lot of people. If bazaars is managed well, it should be beneficial to our economy. I think that we should improve our licensing regime. When we have vacant pitches, we should invite applicants. And we should also relax the succession requirements by allowing non-immediate family members to inherit the license, because the second generation of hawkers usually don't want to become a hawker themselves. Also, for newspaper stand operators, now they can sell water bottles. I think that we should allow them to sell more types of commodities. On the mainland, at their bazaars, they have cultural and leisure zones. I visited a Henan cultural tourist spots. A street performers used a melted sugar to draw my face. I was very impressed. I think that we should organize this type of unique market. I think that we have to improve the hawker licensing regime so that bazaars can continue to become our characteristics. I also submit.
You.
Dr. So Chun-Wing. President, street vending is not just our local characteristics. It was how grassroots people survive and became entrepreneurs in the old days. It is our collective memory. In the 1990s, the government, in the name of environmental hygiene, restrict the number of licenses. The number of hawkers dropped from 20,000 in the 1980s to 5,100 these days. The street culture has become weaker these days, and there were people who asked the government to revitalize fixed-pitch hawkers to drive the tourism, development, and consumption. I support the original motion moved by Mr. Man-kwong and the amendment moved by KWOK Wai-keung. Hawker culture is beneficial to our economy. It has a long history. We can leverage on our traditional advantages by repackaging fixed-pitch hawking zones into thematic hawkers economic circles. Many tourists come to Hong Kong in order to visit these hawking zones. Avenue Street, Stanley Street, and Temple Street. These are very popular spots. These are not replaceable by shopping centers. Also, as we are trying to upgrade and transform our economy by developing advanced technology and industries, but this may not benefit everyone in Hong Kong. I think that the government should, at the same time, diversify our economy. Hawker bazaars can provide more job opportunities to people while driving our economy. However, in recent days, the government have been trying to vitalize the night economy. They rely on temporary street offenders. They ignore the hawker culture. It seems that they have no intention to vitalize it. I think that the government should make reference to other examples in the world, in Singapore and London, by vitalizing the hawker culture. First, we must abandon the current hawker management policy. We should no longer focus on enforcement. We have to integrate local economy with tourism by creating a new image for fixed-pitch hawkers. The government should also promote the development of hawker economic circles. Second, we should develop thematic hawker economic circles by leveraging on economy of scale. In areas where there are a lot of food hawkers, we can turn it into a food circle so that hawkers that sell similar commodities can be gathered there. Third, we should conserve the current fixed-pitch hawker centers. As many stalls are aged, we have to improve their facilities and infrastructures. Hawker culture is not just a type of economic activities. It is a part of our history. I think that the government should protect this heritage of ours and reposition hawkers, develop a long-term strategy for it.
Mr. Jeffrey Lam, President, hawker culture and on-street selling is the soul of a place. You can see how grassroots people survive in a place. It also provides a cheaper choice for food and merchandise for the locality and tourists. It enhances the characteristic of a place. When I was a kid, the material life was not as rich as nowadays, but there are lots of hawking stands and street food available. For example, roasted chestnuts, roasted sweet potatoes, smelly tofu, and dumplings. A packet of roasted chestnuts can make me and my siblings happy for a day. However, with societal development, there are fewer and fewer fixed-pitch hawkers and itinerant hawkers. Now, this time of the government has launched campaigns like day and night vibes and weekend bazaars, which are well received. There are time-limited bazaars and markets selling handicrafts and so on. For instance, this month, there is a weekend bazaar in the West Kowloon Cultural District. The famous charcoal egg waffle hawker from Weston and a milk tea hawker have been invited to the bazaar. The products are very popular. Now, more and more tourists are attracted to in-depth itineraries. There are more and more views in society to ask the government to review the existing hawker management policy. We should draw reference to the hawker management experience in other places and revitalize the industry so as to inherit this characteristic local industry. Suitable places should be identified for developing bazaar. For example, the area in Ocean Park near the Nam Long Shan, it is a very suitable location for weekend nighttime bazaar. There should be more bazaar selling street food like fishball and other local delicacies. Rent concessions should be offered to attract young entrepreneurs to join the industry. There are often media reports that the FEHD and other departments are caught in conflicts with hawkers because of enforcement issues. And there are often disputes in terms of license renewal and license approval. We understand that the FEHD has its duties, but if we are to enhance the hawker management policy, we need to enforce the law with more compassion. In Bangkok, there are street vendors everywhere. Contraventions would only result in a small fine. Their stores will not be confiscated. We should learn from them. Hong Kong is a vibrant and characteristic city. We should keep this unique culture as hawker in Hong Kong. There shouldn't be too much restrictions to strangle hawking activities. We should review the licensing mechanism. Without affecting public safety and hygiene, we should allow hawkers to operate their business in designated areas so that we can inherit these cultural assets. There should be a blueprint with long-term measures to support the robust developments of the hawker trade. I so submit. Mr. Perry Yu. President, I speak in support of Mr. Scott Leung's motion and Mr. Hon KWOK Wai-keung's amendment. I support reviewing the hawker management policy and invigorating the local economy. In the 1960s, there was a movie called The World of Susie Wong. Neon lights and peddling and hawkers peddling on the streets These made the scene representative of the Oriental Pearl. Hawker stores have been our iconic characteristics. The recent movie, The Dumpling Queen, brings me back down the memory lane. When I was a student, I often bought food from street vendors. The hawker industry fed thousands of families and also met the market's need. Now, with the changing aspirations for cityscape, starting from the 1970s, there were no more new licenses issued for itinerant hawkers. Hawkers were moved into public markets to alleviate the impacts on hygiene. Now, the number of license holders reduced from 40,000 in the 70s to 20,000 in the 80s, and then some 5,000 last year. Hawkers should be the icon of our tourism industry. However, the government only takes a regulatory approach rather than a perspective to develop the industry. It's so worrying that 70% of the license holders are 60 years old or above. If the government does not relax the licensing conditions, in 20 years' time, there will be no more hawking activities in Lady Street and Temple Street. Now, without affecting public hygiene and without causing unfair competition to nearby stores, we need to draw reference from other places and relax the licensing conditions so that hawker activities can inject vibrancy to our economy. Now, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung asked the Ecology research unit to conduct a research on hawking activities. Many cities have adopted policies to relax regulation on hawking activities, while striking a balance between public order and developments of the industry. For example, in 2017, Fukuoka has started offering licenses for yatai. For New York in 2021, the licensing cap for on-street vendors have been relaxed. In 2019, Seoul has legalized on-street vending. In the mainland, through street economy, the government has been promoting day and night time economies and help bring to life characteristic stores. It shows that many tourism-oriented cities have adopted the same policy. I declare interest. I'm a member of the Harbourfront Commission. Now, these are my personal views only. Now, with the joint efforts of the government and the Harbourfront Commission, we have achieved great developments along our harbourfront. There are many tourist hotspots along the Hong Kong Island promenade. For example, the Eastern Boardwalk. Now, since the majority of the promenade has been connected, we should forge a vibrant economy along the promenade. The promenade are farther away from the residential area, so the government should study putting up characteristic bazaars selling items with local characteristic. Cultural and creative activities should be introduced. Street performers should be invited to perform so that we can make our promenade vibrant day and night. Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Scott LEUNG, you may now speak on the amendments.
Thank you, President. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Man-kwong for Mr. KWOK Wai-keung for moving the motion of the amendment. I believe that all LEUNG members recognize the fact that the hawker culture is irreplaceable in terms of its cultural and economic values. They also think that the government should review the hawker management policy by lifting the requirements. And we are faced with a structural problem of an aging hawker population. We need to attract young blood to the trade so that our unique culture can be inherited. KWOK Wai-keung has made a number of suggestions in the amendments. He said that we should relax the eligibility criteria for holding a license, the types of commodities, restrictions on hawkers' business hours, and hawking locations. That is not to say that we should allow hawkers to sell commodities everywhere. He also said that we should launch a pilot bazaars. This is in line with what I advocate for. Different hawker bazaars have their own characteristics. I think that we should select 1 to 2 locations where they are popular among tourists to introduce a pilot bazaars there by lifting requirements. Take Temple Street as an example. The government said that they're going to redevelop the Yamate former police station. I think that we should do the same at Temple Street. We should create a theme there by introducing our local food culture to the tourists so that visitors can know more about our lifestyles and night market. In order for us to vitalize the market, we have to relax some of our restrictions, such as the types of commodities that can be sold and hawker business hours, locations, etc. I think that we can put in place a time-limited license regime so that people can sell commodities that attract our tourists. Also, we can introduce training and mentorship program or incubation scheme to nurture young people, just like what the Singapore and London are doing. They have this type of scheme that target ethnic minorities and young people. We can issue this type of time-limited license for young people so that they can have a taste of what it's like to work as a hawker. At the same time, we can collect data on footfall and consumption patterns. And when these hawkers become successful, they can become a mentor to help potential applicants to solve the aging issue. Lastly, I also think that we have to relax the eligibility criteria for holding a license. Currently, the fixed-pitch hawkers can only pass on their license once to their immediate family member. I think that's very restrictive and it limited young people's opportunities to join the trade. I think that we should allow the assistance of hawkers to inherit the license. For example, we should allow a license of a certain nature, licensees that hold license of a certain nature to sell commodities that cater to the taste of different tourists. President, I support Mr. KWOK Wai-keung's amendment. I hope that members will support my motion so that we can work together to reform our hawker management policy and preserve our precious hawker culture.
Under Secretary for Environment and Ecology, President, I thank Mr. Scott LEUNG for moving the motion and the members for their invaluable views. I will now make a consolidated reply. Our hawker policy must balance aspirations so that licensed hawkers can operate according to market demand with due consideration to environmental hygiene, food safety, public security, and other reasonable concerns. For example, not causing excessive nuisances to the neighborhood. For fixed pitch hawkers, in terms of their management, some members indicated that they are concerned about the locations, business hours, and the type of goods allowed to be sold by fixed pitch hawkers. Now, for locations, there are some 4,800 fixed pitch hawker licenses. Some 4,200 of them are on-street fixed pitches, with the remaining 600 located inside hawker markets. Most of the on-street stores are located in central and western districts, Wan Chai, the eastern, Kaohsiung and Samshui-po. They are mostly located on pavements with high footfall and near residential areas. These pictures are products of the history and are usually tolerated by nearby residents and stakeholders. From a commercial point of view, on-street businesses are attracted to locations with a high footfall and will inevitably cause a certain extent of street obstruction. To extend the sizes or add new hawker stands on the streets, we need a suitable location, meaning locations with a suitably high footfall, with no unacceptable impacts on environmental hygiene, food safety, and public security, for example, fire risk. They also must not cause excessive nuisances to the neighborhood or unfair competition to nearby shops. It is challenging to find such a location in Hong Kong. If there are suitable locations with the community and nearby shop support, we will be pleased to consider these locations. On business hours, depending on the actual locations and the nature of businesses, the general business hours of on-street fixed pitches are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. so as to prevent noise nuisance in small hours. Also, according to Cap 132AI hawker regulation, unless there are reasonable grounds like taking a meal, replenishing stock, or handling personal matters, licensees must attend to their own businesses in person. If there are reasonable grounds, a registered assistant can operate the stores in the absence of the licensee. If the licensee is incapacitated or by illness or is outside Hong Kong for more than 8 days, a deputy can be appointed. The regulations are for prevention of store sharing or subletting of stores, and for effective management by the FEHD, and also to allow active operation of the hawking pitches. In enforcement, the FEHD will consider the actual situation. Merchandise allowed to be sold. Now, usually, fixed pitch hawkers can choose from among 30 types of dried goods. There is a wide range of merchandise, including prepackaged food and beverages, clothing items, household items, pet goods, small toys, IT devices, antiques, crafts, and so on. The trade must find a sustainable business model and its own marketing position. In terms of relaxation of the type of goods allowed to be sold by fixed-pitch hawkers, the FEHD adopts an open mind on the premise that no negative impact is caused to food safety and environmental hygiene. Now, some members mentioned that for nostalgic tradesmen, licenses should be issued to these businesses. Now, the government has mentioned that it will follow up on the licensing issues. Subject to the support of District Council and the approval of departments, the tradesman would be issued a license to operate in situ. If the location is not suitable, the tradesman may suggest a new location or choose to move to vacant fixed hawker pitches in the area. Now, last December, a watch repairman operating on the street was issued with a fixed pitch hawker license, brackets tradesman, with the support of the District Council. Now, there are also suggestions to issue new itinerant license. Now, since itinerant hawkers are attracted to locations with high footfall, the cars and their merchandises will lead to obstruction of public passage and also cause impacts on the environmental hygiene situation. According to our existing policy, normally speaking, we will not issue any new itinerant hawker licenses. In terms of supporting the normal succession of licensed hawkers, our hawker policy and regulation approach is not intended to eliminate hawking activities. In fact, to support normal succession of licensed hawkers, the FEHD has put up vacant fixed pitch stalls for reallocation, for application by interested parties, and also for itinerant hawkers to move into indoor operation. The application procedure is simple. Between 2019 and 2022, 540 vacant fixed pitch stalls were made available. 500 new fixed pitch hawk licenses were issued. We will consider whether more vacant stalls should be put up for reallocation. In mid-2024, the FEHD has launched a trial scheme as the Human Square Bazaar. Through collaboration with a non-profit steering organization, young people were given a taste to operate a hawker stall. Supporting hawkers to operate according to market needs. Myriad of measures were adopted by the FEHD to support licensed hawkers to operate according to market demand. Improvements of hardware. Now the FEHD is now enhancing the cooked food market at Hai Phong Road and Wusong Street to enhance the environment and enhance the image of the food market. $230 million have been allocated to launch a 5-year hawker assistance scheme to improve fire safety design and electricity supply of fixed hawker pitches. The layout has also been improved, which bring a new look to the hawker bazaar and improve the operating environment. Relaxation of licensing condition. The FEHD has been reviewing the management arrangements for hawkers and relax licensing conditions as necessary. In 2022 and 2023, in response to the suggestions of the trade, fixed pitch hawkers in Human Square and Temple Streets are allowed to sell more types of products, including prepackaged food and beverages and more dry goods. Some members suggested that we should further extend the restriction so that hawkers in Temple Streets and other places can sell dry goods as well as prepackaged food and beverages. We are open to the idea on the premises that food safety, and public security is not affected. Combining hawker industry and tourism. Now, some members suggested that we should draw reference to the mainland and other places overseas to combine hawking activities with tourism development. Every place has its own management model on hawking activities depending on its unique social, cultural, and economic environments. Hong Kong is the same. Temple Street, Ladies Market, LEUNG, Dong, West Street, and Avenue Streets are hawking areas with local characteristics. Now, as mentioned by the CSTB, compared with artificially made tourist hotspots, tourists are more attracted to unique and characteristic places favored by the locals. Tai Pai Dong is an example. Locals would enjoy a cup of milk tea or coffee or stir-fried dishes at Tai Pai Dong. Tourists like to eat like a local. So for Tai Pai Dong with a characteristic and orderly operation, with the support of the District Council, the FEHD would exercise discretion in relaxing the succession or transferal arrangements of its license to balance the interests of stakeholders while providing a unique culinary experience to tourists. Now, on the 20th of May, the Deputy Chief Secretary of Administration, together with the CSTB and the relevant departments, announced the projects to be launched by the Working Group on Developing Tourist Hotspots, including the Hong Kong Tourism Board's beautification work of the areas along the central to mid-levels escalators. We believe that the beautification work will bring a new look to the area and also more tourists and customers for the Tai Pai Dong in the area. The Tourism Board has been actively promoting Tai Pai Dong to tourists. It has launched the Hong Kong Neighborhood Project in recent years to encourage tourists to experience the local characteristics from various angles. So far, there are the Old Town Central, Sham Shui Po, and West Kowloon programs, which promote the local neighborhood beyond the conventional hotspots. This will extend the tourist staying time in Hong Kong and extend their footprints. Among them, under the Old Town Central program, the tourism hotspots in Central and Shangwan have been combined to form a fashionable lifestyle landmark combining arts and culture, historical architecture, and also gourmet. Now also, besides a world-renowned high-end dining experience, it also recommends Tai Pai Dong in our alleys. Now, with the full support of the Hong Kong Tourism Board, the famous cooking show MasterChef Australia was filmed in Hong Kong last year, introducing our local gourmets, including our street food and Michelin experience. Tai Pai Dong was also featured in the show. Contestants in the show showed off their culinary skills in Tai Pai Dongs in standing streets in Central, presenting the unique taste of Tai Pai Dong to a global audience. Now, through the Hong Kong Tourism Board's one-stop tourism information platform, and also KOL, it has been promoting our local gourmet like Tai Pai Dong. Like other industries, hawkers must find a way of sustainable operation and find the right marketing position. As I've mentioned, on whether we should extend the kinds of goods to be sold by fixed-pitch hawkers, we adopt an open mind without affecting food safety and environmental hygiene. Weekend Bazaar. Some members mentioned that we should establish Weekend Bazaar with a local characteristic. To apply for a bazaar license, you don't need to apply for a hawker license. Only a temporary place of public entertainment license is needed. The procedure is simple. Many bureaus have been collaborating with other bodies to co-host bazaar activities. For example, on the 20th of May, the Working Group on Developing Tourist Hotspots announced 9 projects, including the Victoria Park Bazaar, which will offer cultural and creative services and handmade crafts. The government has been working with private bodies to organize bazaars. In 2024, the Resource Handbook for Bazaar Application was updated to help interested parties understand the procedures of application. We are pleased to see that departments and organizations have been co-organizing bazaars on a regular basis. President, many invaluable views have been put forward today on hawker management. We will keep an open mind and, with pragmatism, balance stakeholders' views so that licensed hawkers can continue to operate according to market demand. We will also ensure environmental hygiene, public safety, and food safety, and avoid causing unnecessary nuisances. For hawker stores with cultural and tourism values, which are well loved by the public, we will work with the CSTB and the Tourism Board and explore whether there is room to expand the scope of merchandise that hawkers can sell so that they can meet market demand more flexibly and tie in with the local tourism scene. We will continue to review and enhance our policies to ensure that our hawker policy can tie in with the society's need while enhancing public interest and social order. Thank you.
I now call upon Mr. KWOK Wai-keung to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. KWOK Wai-keung's amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the 2 groups of the members present. I'll declare the amendment passed. Mr. Man-kwong. Now I'll put the question to you that the motion as amended by Mr. KWOK Wai-keung be passed? Will those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups' members present. I declare the motion as amended passed. I now adjourn the meeting. The council meeting will resume at 11 a.m. on the 4th of June. Thank you.